Okay. Hi, everybody. Great to have you here. Louis from SparkLoop here. Looking forward to today's session talking about the perfect newsletter referral program for 2023. Let's give everyone a couple of minutes to join in, and then we'll get started. As we go through, would love to see who we've got with us. Do we have some familiar faces? Do we have some newsletter operators we've seen before, or are you new here? What we like to do while we're waiting at the very beginning is give everyone an opportunity to share a link through to your newsletter or through to the publication you work at. If you want to share your own Twitter or LinkedIn as well so people can find you, you're more than welcome to do that. And just to give you a brief idea of how today is going to go, we're going to wait another minute or two for people to join. Then I'm going to take about half an hour to run us through today's masterclass, which is on the topic of newsletter referral programs. And then we'll have about 15 to 20 minutes where we can go really deep on any questions you have about newsletter referral programs. So we can take a couple of minutes and do a deep dive and do some rewards brainstorming on particular newsletters if you want. If you have a referral program, you can ask for some feedback. If you have just any general questions about rewards, strategy, all of that kind of stuff, we can do that as well. And I should say, just as before we jump in, I apologize for having to reschedule today's masterclass from last week. Had an urgent personal thing come up last minute, so I had to jump in and reschedule for today instead. And I should mention before we get started, today's masterclass will be recorded. It will be on YouTube probably today, at the latest tomorrow, and we'll send out a link to that as well. So if you can't stay for the whole thing, if you do need to leave early, you'll miss the questions part, which will will be a shame, but you'll be able to catch everything on the recording a little bit later. Very cool. So I think we are almost ready to get started. Before we do, are there any burning questions we have about newsletter referral programs, rewards, all of that kind of stuff that you really want to make sure that we get covered today? If there is, please put them in the chat. And what will happen is I or someone from our team will quickly mark them as a question, and then we'll either jump into them as we go through or we'll do them at the end. Perfect. Then in that case, why don't we get started? So today we're talking about newsletter referral programs, and we've got three key goals that I want to take us through in about half an hour. Number one, I want to make sure we all understand what it actually is that makes a newsletter referral program successful, because it isn't stickers, and a lot of people think that. Number two, I want us to understand how to discover the perfect referral rewards for your newsletter, because they will be different for every single newsletter. And number three, I want us to learn and understand how you can actually take those rewards and implement them in a referral program in your own newsletter as well. So if we can get through all three of those things in about half an hour, I think we'll be doing just fine. So let's start off, in case there is anyone here who doesn't quite know what a newsletter referral program is, just explaining it to make sure we're all on the same page. So the simplest, super basic version of a newsletter referral program has three components. You have existing subscribers. They can refer friends or colleagues or family to join your newsletter. For each of those people that they refer, the referring existing subscriber gets what we call a referral point, and then somehow they can use those points to get rewards and get fun stuff, get prizes for sharing. So that might be milestone rewards, that might be entries into giveaways, that might be other fun things that we'll talk about later. But the basic idea is you have existing people on the newsletter, you encourage them to go out and share with their friends, and as they do so, they get rewarded for doing that. And the idea is you can use your existing audience, obviously, to grow your own newsletter. So how well do newsletter referral programs work? Because obviously this is something that's always been super hyped, especially in 2018, 19, 20, 21. And it's now something that has become much more common and that almost every newsletter has. So is it really actually an important and key growth channel for your audience development? Well, the way that we like to measure sort of the performance of referral programs at Sparkloop is judging how much more they will help your newsletter grow, how much faster your newsletter will grow with a referral program than without one. And so we've done a lot of testing on this over thousands of different newsletters over the last 3 or 4 years. And what we've worked out is that you have these basic 4 figures. So firstly, if you imagine let's say you take your newsletter, just an average newsletter, and you don't include like an easy way for people to share with their friends. You don't include any rewards. You do nothing. You don't ask anyone to share anywhere. And you just see and you wait how many of your existing subscribers will actually share with their friends. And on average, for a decentish newsletter, what you'll find is that if you don't ask anybody to share ever, about 3% of your growth will come from people sharing with their friends. Now, if you improve that and you ask people to share and you tell them where they should be sharing and you give them easy one-click sharing options inside of the newsletter and you explain all that kind of stuff, on average, you can get to about 10% faster newsletter growth just by doing that. So more than 3 times as much growth, basically. Again, no rewards, no referral program, just making it really obvious and easy and asking people to share. It gets you 10%. Then if you take newsletter referral programs that are run outside of Sparkloop, when people come to us from other tools, for example, where they do have easy sharing options, they do have a referral program, but it's maybe not quite set up correctly and it's maybe missing some of the stuff that's really important. What you'll see on average is that they get about a 15 to 17% growth boost from their referral program. And then at Sparkloop, our average, when everything's set up properly, across all of our users is about 34%. So when you're measuring how effective your referral program is, what you're really measuring against is this number here. You're saying, if my audience, if I didn't do any referral program at all, if I just ask people to share and make it easy for them to share, for an average newsletter, I should get about a 10% growth boost from that. And what you can kind of quickly see from looking at this is that really there's only 2 options that really make sense, because a referral program is quite a lot of work and it takes, a lot of, mind share of what you could be doing growth wise for other things as well. So the 2 things that really make sense are either to not run a referral program at all and just make it really easy for people to share, or to run a really good one with Sparkloop. Not doing any sharing, no point in doing that at all, because it's so easy to add in a little sharing option and to ask people to share. And there's also not really that much point on average in running a referral program outside of Sparkloop, because in general, you tend to get, for the amount of extra work you have to do, really not very much more than the 10% growth that you'd get without the rewards in the first place and just making it easy for people to share. So let's take a look at what that would actually do for your newsletter specifically. So what you can do to figure out how quickly your own newsletter will grow with a referral program, or to kind of get an estimate of what it could do, is you can follow these 3 steps. Without adding in any referral program or any rewards at all, you can just track roughly how much of your growth is coming from word of mouth, from people sharing. And when you have that percentage, you can multiply that by between 3 and 10x. So if you're seeing your audience growing 10% without any incentives, what you'll know is that with a good referral program, you'll grow about, let's say, 50, 60% faster than you're currently growing. On the low end, if your rewards aren't great, you'll grow about 30% faster. On the high end, you could be growing, about 100% faster than you're currently growing with a referral program. And that gives you that ballpark estimate, that range of how quickly you should be growing with a referral program, so that you can judge, am I using the right rewards? Is this set up correctly? Is this even worth me doing? Because the uncomfortable truth with a referral program is it can't fix copy and content and the newsletter that just isn't inherently shareable, whether that's because the content isn't great, whether that's because the audience isn't quite the right match, whether that's because the frequency is wrong. Doesn't matter what the reason is. If you're not seeing at least a significantly, a good portion of your existing audience sharing without a referral program, there aren't any rewards and any external motivations that you can use that will turn that into a really successful referral program. All the referral program is doing is multiplying the inherent intrinsic interest in sharing. So this gives you an idea of, without even getting started and investing into any rewards, is this going to be worth it for me? And roughly what should I be expecting and what should I be aiming towards? So now that we've looked at that, let's take a look at crafting the perfect newsletter referral program for your newsletter. And there are really 3 steps that we're going to run through today, which is the exact same 3 steps that we use when we help larger newsletter operators like the thousands we've helped before choose the correct referral strategy for their own referral program. So we start at the bottom of the pyramid with the main questions: who, whom, what, where, and why. And that's where we're going to start in a second. Once you understand all of that, we then move on to figuring out how to choose the right rewards. And then finally, we take some time to put all of this together into a referral program that's actually going to work really well for your newsletter. So let's start with the first 5 questions: the who, whom, what, where, and why. So when it comes to the who of your referral program, what we're talking about is who are the people who are actually going to be making referrals. And when you look at your newsletter audience, the best way to think about this is to split them into 3 different buckets. You have your casual fans, you have your superstars, and you have what we call your questers. So your casual fans are the vast majority of your audience. They're people who like your newsletter, who would potentially be willing to share it, and they're maybe going to share it once, and they're going to share it with maybe their Twitter audience, maybe their LinkedIn audience, maybe their group chat. They'll share it with multiple people, but they're not going to be sharing it with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. So it's just, the average normal newsletter subscriber. And if you have a really, really good referral program, your casual fans will make up maybe 10 to 15% of your total audience. So you can get maybe 10% or 15% of your total newsletter subscribers to try and make referrals. And on average, they'll make a couple of referrals each, maybe between 1 and 10, and they'll try and refer maybe once a year at most, maybe just the once. So they make up a big percentage of your referrals, but they're also the bulk of your audience. On the other side, you have the superstars. And this is just the small handful of people who have huge audiences of their own and who you need to find a way to incentivize, because they know and you know that if they start sharing, and they may only share once or twice, but they're going to reach 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million people who would be potential subscribers. And with one post on Instagram or one tweet, one share or mention in their newsletter, they can drive through 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 subscribers to you without batting an eyelid. And then finally, we have what we call the questers. And the image here is of a friend of mine who's called Rob Allen. And if you maybe saw a masterclass of ours, I think about 2 years ago, Rob actually came on and talked about his experience, because he is, as far as we know, the person who has made the most referrals to any newsletter referral program ever, with roughly 4,000, 4,500-ish referrals to Morning Brew's referral program. And what's unique about Rob is that he isn't a superstar with a huge audience of his own. What's really exciting about Rob is he became what we call a quester. He became gamified in a sense. He really wanted to just keep referring and sharing and to see how far he could get and to try and win those rewards. And that's that third group of people. It's people who don't have a huge audience of their own, but they're not just going to share once. You can encourage them to keep sharing again and again and again to unlock different rewards, to become the top sharer. You can find that very, very, very small percentage. I mean, we're talking 1 out of 1,000 subscribers, most likely. 1 out of 1,000 of these people who if you get the referral program right, the messaging and the rewards, you can incentivize them to go and do a lot of work to really go above and beyond for your brand and to get you thousands, if not hundreds, if not thousands of referrals. So once you know the who of who's going to be doing the referring, the next question you want to be asking is, to whom are they going to be referring? So something that we don't think about a lot in most cases when you start thinking about your referral program, you're focusing on, oh, what are the rewards? Where do I put this in the newsletter? How many points for this reward versus this reward, and so on. But one of the most important things is for you to get a really good idea of who you want your audience to share with. So it could be that you want them to share with colleagues. It could be you want them to share with family, with teammates, with friends. Will be different depending on your newsletter, but you want to have a really solid idea of this for two reasons. One, because it's going to affect how you pitch it later to people and give them that idea, because if you don't know who they should be sharing with, then you can't tell them who they should be sharing with. And if you can't tell them who they should be sharing with, most of them aren't going to put the work in to have a think about it and go, oh yeah, I could take this link and go to this Facebook group over there, or I could post it in my Slack channel. You need to be doing that mental work for them to make it really easy and obvious for where they should share. And the second thing you want to be thinking of why this is important is because very often you want to be using rewards that will have some sort of group effect, where it's not just the person who's doing the referring that's winning a reward, but it's also the person who's being referred is part of that reward. So it's really important to understand both who's doing the referring and also who they'll be referring to. When you have both of those, the next thing you want to be thinking of is, okay, we know who will be doing the referring. We know who they're going to try and refer. What are they going to be asking that person to sign up for? Let's say it's a general news newsletter. You have an existing subscriber. You've told them they should share this with their friends. What exactly is it that you want them to share with their friends? And this is a really big issue that we see with a lot of newsletters that aren't really thinking too carefully about optimizing sort of their sign-up flow, is that they will have just a throwaway landing page somewhere or like a pop-up opt-in form on a site. And you can use lead magnets in some cases, but what we recommend is it's not really worth setting up a newsletter referral program if you're not first going to invest into a really good newsletter sign-up page. And the best that I've seen is from Contrarian Thinking. You can go and check it out at contrarianthinking.co. And it has all of the important components. It has a little bit of an example of the newsletter. It has a really catchy tagline. It has just a one simple email sign-up flow. It's not asking for any other nonsense like the first name and all that kind of stuff. It's very concise, explaining the value that you're going to get. And it has a personal touch and some social proof. And I think if you need somewhere to start, I would definitely think you can do a lot worse than just copying what Cody and the Contrarian Thinking team have done with their landing page. So when you have the what, we then have two more questions, and we have the where, which is where you want people to share. So we know, for example, let's take our own newsletter at Sparkloop. Let's take the Send and Grow newsletter, which we write weekly for newsletter operators. So our audience is newsletter operators. We know that we want them to share with other newsletter operators. So there's no point just giving them the link and saying, oh, go share this on Facebook. Maybe go share this on LinkedIn, because they're probably not going to reach many newsletter operators there to refer. So what we want to do is we want to give them easy options to share in places where other newsletter operators are likely to be hanging out, because that's the best way of maximizing our chances of hitting, getting in front of a lot of people, basically, or a lot of the correct people. So with a newsletter like that, we might get super specific. We might say, oh, go and share this in that one Slack channel. Go and share this in that group chat for newsletter operators or a specific Slack chat. Go and share this on Reddit. Go and share on Twitter. Share it with your own newsletter audience, maybe if they have a relevant thing. Forward it to the top 3 newsletter operators that you know, for example, that kind of thing. You want to be making sure that the options you're giving people to share, where you're asking them to share your newsletter, really aligns and is easy for them to do with the kind of audience you want them to be sharing with. This is a super underrated thing. The number of times I've seen people in like B2B industries and they'll have just the default sort of sharing widget with Facebook, email, WhatsApp, or something like that. And you go, okay, well, where do these people, if this is a marketing newsletter, for example, where does this marketing audiences, like the people that they could share with, where do those other marketers hang out? Where do they know these people? Well, that's Twitter. It's in the company Slack channel. It's on LinkedIn. Okay, well, then why are you asking people to share on Facebook, email, and WhatsApp, for example? So you really have to think about this very carefully. Otherwise, you're going to be incentivizing people to share, and they'll be wanting to win great rewards, and they'll be sharing in the wrong place, and really struggling to get lots of referrals. And then the last of the 5 questions that we want to go through is the why. And this is probably the most underrated of the 5, and it's also the hardest to get right. So the really important thing to understand about your newsletter referral program, especially when we're thinking about the rewards and the messaging, is that people make referrals for emotionally driven reasons, but they justify them with rational reasoning, basically. So the actual true reason, the true incentive for them to make the referral, nearly always on an emotional level. But they'll have a good objective reason that they want to be able to say, oh, well, I did it for the stickers, or I did it for the mug, or I did it because I have a chance of winning this thing, and this thing would be cool. But really, it's about the emotional connection that's making them do that. So there are 2 ways that you can get people to refer. The very simplest, you can give them extrinsic incentives to encourage them to share more, or you can uncover and highlight the intrinsic incentives of sharing. And that's the part that most people don't do so well. So very often when you dig into why someone is referring, it's not because they want, let's say, the Morning Brew stickers, for example. It's because they want their friends to see them referring. They want their friends to think that they're cool and that they read daily news. They're informed. The same reason you'll see people maybe in a train or in the subway and stuff carrying The Economist or The New Yorker or whatever magazine they're carrying, right? It's signaling to a certain extent. Maybe the main reason they're referring is just because they really like you as a person and they feel connected to your mission, and they want you to succeed and they want to be part of that success and they want you to see them helping you succeed, for example. And maybe that may be true, but you have to highlight it for them, make it seem accepted, and then also give them a little cherry on top of some sort of reward that will then justify the rational reason for why they were sharing. And when you put all of these 5 together, you have a really solid basis of understanding that will allow you to create really, really good referral rewards for your newsletter. So if anyone has any questions on this so far, please put them in now, and I'm just going to take a quick drink, and then we're going to move on to the second step. Awesome. And if any come in, we'll look at them as they go through, or into the end. We'll have plenty of time for questions. So the second step that we want to go through, once you understand the who, whom, what, why, where, is to go into choosing the actual rewards that you'll want to use for your referral program. So when it comes to rewards, there's basically 2 options you can take. We have what we call milestone rewards, and we have what we call boosters. So if we look at boosters first, boosters are basically rewards that you're not guaranteed to win. So the idea is to use these quite sparingly and use them to inject some urgency, to encourage a boost of sharing, encourage some FOMO. So for example, you might have a regular monthly referral giveaway where you say, whoever makes a referral this month, they'll go into a prize draw, and at the end of the month, we'll choose one person to win a signed t-shirt, an Apple iPhone, whatever it is. Or you could gamify it even more, and you could say, the first person to make 100 referrals from today is going to get a Peloton, for example. Go. Or you can tie it into your mission, which is one of the things we like to see most, and say, okay, well, we're really close to reaching a big milestone. We're nearly at 100,000 subscribers. So if you help us get over the finish line by the end of the month, if you've made a referral by the end of the month, everyone who's helped us achieve that milestone together we're going to give them a coupon. We're going to give them a limited edition. I helped Send and Grow get to 100,000 subscribers, and all I got was a lousy T-shirt or something like that. Obviously, the creative part of that's up to you, but you have these little time-limited boosters that you can use to increase the urgency and get people to share who maybe didn't want the regular rewards, who've maybe already won them, or who just needed something a little bit fresh to incentivize them. A cherry on the top. But the main bulk of your referral program should be driven by what we call milestone rewards. And a milestone reward is basically like it sounds. You make one referral, you get a reward guaranteed. You make 3, you get the next reward. 5, the next reward, and so on. And this is a topic that a lot of newsletter operators get quite confused by, and they tend to make a couple of mistakes. The first mistake they make is being a little bit too stingy with the rewards that they choose. So they will ask for too many referrals for for the reward that they're giving away. The risk reward ratio isn't right, and often they'll over-index and use too many rewards that are too based on value, and we'll come to that in a second. So our recommendation is to actually not think about the referral tiers at all until you've figured out what some really awesome rewards would be for your audience, and then to fit them back into the structure. And if you don't have rewards that fit, or good rewards that fit well into the structure, you don't need to invent bad rewards and add them in and make it fit. It's better to have good rewards that don't fit into the structure than bad rewards that fit perfectly into this kind of framework. But assuming that you have a lot of good reward ideas, what we like to see is a trigger reward for between 1 and 3 referrals. The lower you can make this, the better. And this is the most important reward. It's digital. It's the thing that everybody thinks they can win. It's the thing that's going to get everybody to share once, at least. It's the thing that's going to get that 15% of your sort of normal fans to start sharing. From there, we go into maybe 2 or 3 rewards in the 2 to 10, 2 to 15 referral range, which are what we call momentum builders. And these are those stretch goals, those things where people say, well, if I share once on Twitter, I'm going to win this reward, which is cool, and I might even get this one. And then they'll see, oh, well, I'm at 4 referrals, and for 5 referrals, I could get this thing. So I guess it's worth sharing maybe once more or once on LinkedIn as well. And then all of a sudden, some of those people are really excited by it, and they're Rob Allens, and they're out there making thousands of referrals. And we have 2 others as well. So aspirational rewards are once you get past that sort of 10, 15 referral stage. That's where most people go, yeah, I can't make that really, most likely, without putting some serious work in. And that's, for most people, going to turn them off. The normal referrer is going to go, well, I've got no chance of making 20 referrals to this newsletter to win a T-shirt, for example. So I don't care about that. I've got to be incentivized by this first and second reward. But the people who are interested in the challenge, who have slightly larger audiences of their own, for example, they're going to look at those rewards and go, yeah, I can probably do that. I could get that. That's good. There's something in it for me, something to work towards, or something that sort of justifies the audience size that I have. And then up at the highest level, 50 plus, but really normally you'd be talking here 100, 200, maybe even 1,000 referrals plus. That's that big shiny object, that showstopper reward. That's something that's kind of crazy, that gets people talking. Most people probably they'll never win it. Probably nobody will ever win it. But it's something that's really unique, really creative. And it's the thing that people mention when they're sharing as the reason that they're sharing. They won't say, oh, I'm sharing so that I can get access to a download or to get some stickers or something. They'll say, I'm sharing because if you can be one of the, if I can get 1,000 people to sign up to the newsletter, I get a flight to New York. I get a billboard in San Francisco. I get 50 pounds of elk meat, for example, which is all real rewards we've had people use up in that category. It's the kind of the fun, creative thing that makes people go, that would be really fun to win. Let's give it a go and kind of have a laugh about it. And those are, you want to have ideally something in each of these categories. And anywhere between, 3 up to 5 or 6 rewards is fine. You don't want to go more than 6 because at a certain point, you're just flashing through all these different rewards and it all sort of merges into one and people get a little bit confused by them. And honestly, they don't want most of them anyway. They probably only want 1 or 2 and the rest are just sort of extra expenses that you have to give. Awesome. So when we're talking now a bit more about referral rewards, and we're going to go into the detail, there's a big mistake that almost everybody makes when they first start thinking about what their rewards should be. And it's copying others and focusing on the monetary value. So everybody comes in and goes, well, I've seen this newsletter and it kind of made me want to share. And they look like they're successful and know what they're doing. So I'm just going to copy them because that's what marketers do. We like to copy. So they'll go, okay, well, I'm going to do stickers for 3 referrals. And I'll do a secret weekly extra edition of the newsletter for 1 referral. And I'll do coupon codes because I saw someone do coupon codes. But what you got to remember is most newsletter referral programs, in general, they're not super, high performing in most cases. We're a little bit of a different exception at Sparkloop because we're very hands-on, but in general, they're just copying others blindly as well. And you have people just going around in this circle of copying each other and not knowing why it's working or not working. So when we go into talking about the rewards, the first thing you want to do is just sort of say, okay, it doesn't matter what other people are doing because that's not going to work for me. There's no point even trying to copy others. And secondly, the monetary value of the rewards I have, it doesn't matter at all. The only exception is if you have an audience of people who are there specifically for discounts or to get access to things. If you have a very an audience with with very low disposable income, basically. So if you have an audience of like flight deal, like if you have a flight deal newsletter, for example, or a newsletter highlighting discounts and sort of like cheap days out for students and stuff, sure, that's going to work great for you. If you have any other kind of newsletter, the monetary value of the rewards, it really doesn't matter at all. At all. It's not what's important. So let's take a look at what actually is important. And there are a couple of factors that come into what makes a really good referral reward. They're based on sort of instinctive urges inside of people. And I want to go through the top 4 or 5 here, just to explain where they come from so that you can get some ideas of rewards that could really work well for you and sort of get the wheels spinning. So the first group of rewards that we really love, especially for that first trigger reward for 1 or 2 referrals at Sparkloop, is rewards that are based on exclusivity or FOMO, urgency, fear of missing out, right? Something that they get exclusive that other people can't get access to. This is especially useful with affluent audiences. So if you have an audience that is wealthy, this is going to do super well for you because they don't need coupons, they don't need stickers, they don't need free stuff, but they don't like being told that they can't have access to things that other people maybe have access to. They want that access. So what we've seen work really well here as examples in the past are, for example, if you have a podcast, don't do an extra podcast necessarily for people. Don't do some sort of cheat sheets or, stickers of the podcast and things like that. Instead, just do the bloopers. It's that personal connection. It's exclusive. It's behind the scenes. It's something unique that nobody else gets access to, and they get to feel extra special. If you have a new book coming out, for example, you don't need to give away free copies of the old book. In general, that doesn't work very well as a reward. You don't need to give away a coupon for the new book that you have coming out or the new subscription that you have coming out. Instead, give them early access or give them an unreleased chapter, give them an alternate ending, give them a hypothesis that you ended up taking out of the book, for example. All of those exclusively pitched items will do much, much better than items or rewards that are actually, have some sort of tangible monetary value to them. And my favorite of all of these is something that we invented about 1.5 years ago now at Sparkloop, which is what we call the locked insider section of the newsletter. So the idea here is you make just a little section of your newsletter. It could be tip of the week, could be photo of the week, joke of the week, meme of the week. Works with basically all of the ESPs that we support at Sparkloop. It's quite easy to set up. You just do it once. And as people scroll through the newsletter, they'll get to this section and it'll be blurred out, maybe with a little lock over it. And it'll say something like, if you want to read this fun small thing that we add in once a week, just refer one person, you'll become an insider, you'll get to join this with us. And it should be something fun. It shouldn't be, the most valuable thing in the newsletter because you don't want to hide that from most of your subscribers. But it's the curiosity that's the important thing, and the fact that they can't get access to it. And this works incredibly well. It's by far, as far as we can tell, the most effective, like quick and easy first referral reward to do. So the second of these 5 is valuable content. And this is the one that most people sort of instinctively gravitate to. And they're very happy to go, okay, well, I'll take a module from my online course. I'll take a download of our top 10 most recent, or like top 10 most popular newsletter sends ever, something like that. And they'll say that's, we'll do that. And in a lot of cases, that can work quite well as a reward. But the issue is that reward needs to be pitched properly. If it's valuable content, it's not as simple as just having, an image of the t-shirt or an image of the swag or an image of whatever it is. You have to do more work with this kind of reward to get people to really understand why it's a good reward, why they should be excited about it. So really what you want to be doing here is pitching hard on what the story is, what the angle is, why is this unique and fun, and why is this content valuable for them? Why should they really want this? Why is this a cool thing? And ideally, you combine this with the reason for sharing. So for example, at Sparkloop, if we're talking about our Send and Grow newsletter, if we wanted to do something here, what we shouldn't be doing is taking a piece of content we've created, like a playbook for something. We shouldn't be just taking that playbook and saying, hey, refer one friend and you'll get access to this playbook. What we should be doing is we should be saying, okay, we've created the perfect resource for running a newsletter mastermind to help each other grow. And it's perfect when you do this with 4 to 5 people. So refer 4 to 5 newsletter operators to this newsletter who you think would be a perfect fit and who you'd like to run a mastermind with. And we'll send you this so that all of you can join in and know how to, run a really effective newsletter mastermind to help each other grow together. So combining it with the reason for sharing, combining it with, a reward for the people who are being referred as well. So it's not just for the person referring. Super, super powerful. Definitely recommend trying to sort of loop that into the valuable content angle if possible. 3 of 5 is swag or merch. And weirdly, we get one question we get asked all the time at Sparkloop is, well, my audience is execs. They are high up in marketing, or they're high up in media or a B2B space. They're not going to want t-shirts. They're not going to want mugs. They're not going to want branded stuff. And when people say that, they're right and they're wrong. So most of your audience won't want any kind of branded item from you, any kind of swag or merch. But you're not trying to get most of your audience to share. You're trying to get the top 10 to 15% of your fans to share. And it turns out that even especially with high net worth, more executive audiences, the ones who do support you and do like you, they kind of are curious. They kind of would like that mug. They kind of do want to be, to be seen to be supporting you and to be able to show that off and be part of it. They find that fun because, they don't need anything with a monetary value. They want part of the story and that. So in that sense, swag and merch can work really well. Where it doesn't work well, unfortunately, is when you don't put effort into it. So if you just take your logo and you slap that onto a standard mug or a standard t-shirt, nobody really is going to want it in most cases. It's not going to work well as a referral reward. But if you put some effort into it and you crowdsource, or you get some really custom designs, maybe with some slogans from your newsletter, maybe with some memes from your newsletter, for example, maybe you create a slogan specifically, or you crowdsource it from your audience. When you do that, put some effort into it, put that onto some swag or some merch, all of a sudden those become by far the best rewards for, driving that sort of mid 10 to 50 referral growth. So it all comes down to the effort that you put in. And that's a common theme with referral programs, is that in most things in marketing, you can get 80% of the results with 20% of the effort. With referral programs, unfortunately, that's not the case. You have to put in about 90% of the effort to get about 99% of the results. And anything less than that is just not worth doing at all. You may as well have just put in a button and just ask people to share with 0 rewards. So One that I'm always a little bit hesitant to bring up is monetary rewards, and I'm bringing up this kind of reward up less as something you should try and more as a warning not really to try it. So, the problem with using monetary rewards for your referral program is that it's very easy for people to do the math between the discount or the value of the sort of monetary reward that you're giving them and how many referrals you're asking them for. And for most people, that math doesn't work out. They go, okay, it's a $10 coupon. Cool. And I have to make 2 referrals. Well, I'm not an influencer, but me sharing on Twitter's, it's worth more than $10. And in a lot of cases, you think you're being generous, but actually, what you're doing when you do that is shooting yourself in the foot by saying, I think I can buy your share on Twitter. I think I can buy your recommendation for $10 or for $15 or whatever you do. Or it's even worse if it's a percentage. Percentages are the absolute worst thing you can do, a 10% off, 20% off kind of discount. So, in general, try and stay away from rewards with a monetary value unless you're being ridiculously generous. And the only one that we found that really consistently knocks it out of the park when it comes to monetary rewards, the only one that we recommend basically everybody try is coupon books. So, especially if your newsletter is powered by or monetized through sponsorships and advertising, what we recommend doing is basically going to 20 or 30 of those potential sponsors or existing sponsors, brands that are a good fit for your audience. In local newsletters, that might be local businesses, cafes, restaurants, and so on. In marketing, it might be software providers. In general, media news, it might be food subscriptions and healthcare products and all that kind of stuff. Go out to them, get each of them to give you a coupon for their service or product. And what you'll end up with relatively easily, outside of just strengthening your relationship to those potential sponsors and getting a foot in the door, is you will have 20 different coupons for 20 cool brands that in total, even though each of them's only worth maybe $10 to $100, in total, that coupon booklet that you put them into is going to be worth $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, maybe even more dollars. And that becomes a really, really enticing reward for 2 or 3 referrals. And it costs you absolutely nothing to do, probably even makes you money by connecting you to potential sponsors. So if you have to do a monetary reward, if you don't have any of the other ones, far and away the best thing to try is that. It takes a little bit of work to set up, but it more than pays for itself, and you can just keep using it. And finally, when it comes to the different sort of motivations behind rewards, we're going to go completely the opposite direction to the money can't buy rewards. And these are our absolute favorites. These are the creative ones. These are normally the free ones. These are the ones that work super well, that get people talking and get people sharing. Especially now that referral programs are a common thing in newsletters, the referral program itself is not a novelty. Every newsletter they're reading, every good one will have a referral program already. So you can't just sort of get them to sit up and pay attention to it. They're almost not paying attention to referral programs now. What you have to do instead is to get them to pay attention to it by standing out from the other ones and by being unique. So things we've seen here are, a flag that was flown in a fighter jet for a military newsletter, for example. We had a creator who is really big on Twitter and really well known for creating memes. Said if you make 20 referrals, they'll do a custom meme, especially for you. We've had people do elk meat, as I mentioned before. We've had people do, we'll buy you a billboard in San Francisco and put whatever you want on it. We've had people do secret handshakes that they'll teach you, for example. We've had calls, you'll get a call from Ryan Reynolds, was even one that we've had. So the more unique, the more crazy, the more personal you can go, the better. It's going to save you money, and it's also going to get you much, much better results. So I'll finish off on the reward section with 2 things we've already covered quickly. The first is rewards that almost never work. So we've touched on discount codes. We've touched already on logoed merch without any effort in them. The only other one that I really want to hammer home here is coaching or consulting calls. If you're a coach, if you're a consultant, even if people are happily spending thousands of dollars an hour on your time, it doesn't translate well into referral rewards. The people who want it are going to pay for it, and the people who don't want it, they're not going to refer enough for it, and it's just going to cheapen it, and it's going to be awkward, and I wouldn't even recommend trying it. So stay away from those where possible. And the same goes for meet and greets in most cases, unless it's one-on-one and unless you're flying them out to meet your team, for example. A group call to ask questions is never going to go well, and it's always awkward when it ends up not being successful, and you have to explain that to whoever the person who's supposed to be leading the group call is. So definitely don't offer, if you work at a larger publication, definitely don't offer a group call with your boss or with your CEO or something like that, because that is going to end embarrassingly for everybody. And then finally, rewards that do work really well at the moment. We've touched on coupon booklets, locked insider sections, exclusive early access, unique swag, the generally creative showstoppers like that month-long billboard in San Francisco, or an invite to come and visit your workspace with the team, for example. And the only other one I want to highlight here that's working particularly well is making a access to a partner program, a paid partner program, a referral reward. So what you can do is you can say, okay, well, if you have an audience of your own, especially if this is students, for example, or influencers, make 50 referrals, and you'll unlock access to become a paid partner. And then for each referral you make from there on out, we'll pay you $2, $3 per subscriber, for example. And that's super easy to set up with Sparklet with our partner program tool. You can just invite them in the same way that you'd already be inviting other newsletters that you're sponsoring, and just paying, let's say, $2 or $3 per high quality subscriber through the partner program tool. Awesome. So I'll take a quick break here. If anyone has any questions, just take a drink, and then we'll look at the final section, which will take about 5 minutes, going through putting it all together. So when it comes to putting all this together into a really good newsletter referral program, there are basically 3 really important places to put this into your newsletter. Number 1 is the in-email referral section. This should go into every newsletter that you have. It should be compact, it should be concise, it should be eye-catching. And as they scroll through the newsletter, normally it's in the middle or towards the end of the newsletter, depending on the length. It's where you have that reminder of the referral rewards and that call to action to share. And the really important 3 things here are: you should lead with the rewards, you should make them attractive, you should make them eye-catching. Often a moving GIF is best. You should absolutely nail what we talked about before, the whom, what, where, why, and who, inside of your copy here. So making it really easy and obvious for people who they should be sharing with, why, and where they should be sharing it. And then you want to make the actual act of sharing in the right place as easy as possible. So don't send people through to some referral hub. We have really good ones at Sparkloop on the technical, like technically they're built and perfect, but they kill performance. Sending people through to that link to find sharing options adds so much extra friction, really kills results. Instead, just give them the link and give them between 1 and 3 concrete places that they should be sharing, and say thank you. Outside of the referral section, what we're finding to be even more important now that more newsletters have referral sections in their newsletter, is to have a native call to action, a native sentence or 2 written in your own voice inside of your welcome to the email, to the newsletter. So in the little intro preamble section of your newsletter, if you have one, if you don't, you should have one, most likely. Occasionally, not every time, but occasionally include just a one liner or a 2 sentence pitch of a reward that they could be winning, why you want them to share. And again, don't put in here, images of the rewards. Don't put in multiple places they could be sharing. Just ask them concretely, hey, it would mean so much to us if you'd share the newsletter like everyone else is doing, with 2 friends. I bet Twitter would be a great place to do that. Or I bet you could put this into your company Slack channel right now, copy the link. And having it right at the top in a really native embedded format makes people read it, makes people take action on it, because it feels personal, and it outperforms the referral section 9 times out of 10, makes a huge difference. And finally, the other place inside of your emails that you want to have the referral program is in a welcome email. So the best time to do this is not in your initial welcome email right after somebody's signed up. it's sometime between 3 and 8 days after sign up. So ideally, they've received at least one of your emails, your regular email sends by this point, maybe even two, but it's still fresh and exciting, and they haven't sort of, blanked out quite yet. So you want to have an additional email there that goes in depth, that introduces it, that says thank you for referring. And that's really a chance for you to make a personal connection, to establish that this is something that is expected behavior that they should be sharing. And most importantly, it gives you a chance to explain in detail, in a lot of space, all of the rewards and the story and why they're amazing and why they should want those rewards. And then every time they see the rewards in your newsletter, in the referral section, where it's a lot more compact, where you don't have as much space, every time they see it there from then on, they're going to be brought back and remember the actual value and the actual story behind those things. So this is your pitching spot, and it's the most important of all the emails that you could be sending out, and it's the only one we think is really necessary. So I'm going to end up here before we jump into some questions with the three things that the best newsletter referral programs that we've seen all have in common. The first is that they build a culture of sharing. So the most important part of that is shouting out and saying thank you to the top referrers. That could be just as simple as saying thank you to X, Y, and Z for referring. But ideally, it's a list of the top 4 or 5 referrers with how many referrals they've made, kind of like a leaderboard that you add in each week or each month to the newsletter, at least once a month. And what that does is it does two things. Firstly, it reinforces the default sharing behavior. So it tells everybody, hey, look, everyone else is sharing. It's expected of me. I should probably do that too, which makes them start making more referrals. But also, it encourages the kind of people who would see others and say, hey, there's a leaderboard here. I'm maybe 7th on the leaderboard. I could be on that leaderboard. I could be number 5. I could be number 4. I could be number 1. And what you find is most people don't care about that, but the top 10 or 15 people really do. And they're the ones who start making hundreds and thousands of referrals and trying to outcompete each other. And all of a sudden, you've got 10 or 20,000 really good new subscribers, almost by accident, just because you've been, not because of the rewards, but just because you've been shouting out the top people and letting them have a bit of fun competing with each other. And that just reinforces itself as that continues and builds a really powerful flywheel. The other second thing that all the really good newsletter referral programs seem to have in common is that they all seem to be really unique and really personal with their rewards. So we worked with a really, really big newsletter, about 2.5 million subscribers, a personality, an author, someone who's quite famous. And because of the size of their audience, they could get whatever prize, whatever rewards they wanted, paid for by sponsors. So they were giving away, with no problem, things like, make a referral and you'll be entered into a prize draw to win one of 20 luxury D2C mattresses worth $2,000 each. And it worked okay, but it didn't work super well. And then we said, instead of doing that, why don't we try the opposite approach? Instead of giving away something that's valuable, but that your audience don't really want from you in particular, why don't we give them something that there's no other way for them ever to get? Something really exclusive. How about like a chapter that you had to remove from your best-selling book that you haven't published, that your publishers asked you to take out? And we did that, and they got about 50 times as many referrals from that reward that was free for them versus these super expensive luxury mattresses that were sponsored by this other brand for, I think, about $40,000 or $50,000 in total. So go personal, go unique, and you will, no matter the kind of audience, no matter the relationship, always do better. And finally, this is a newer trend for this year. What we're seeing really smart newsletter operators do with referral programs is combine their referral program with Upscribe. So if you don't know Upscribe already, it's a post opt-in recommendations widget that we have at Sparkloop. So you add it to your sign-up page. After a subscriber subscribes to your newsletter, they'll see a pop-up with 2, 3, 4 other newsletters that they might like as well, that you've chosen and handpicked to recommend to them. And they can opt into some or all of those with just one click. And what we do at Sparkloop with Upscribe is we make it easy to choose newsletters to recommend that will pay you if those subscribers end up enjoying the newsletter. So they'll pay $2, $3, $4 per subscriber in a lot of cases. And what that means is that on average, for each newsletter subscriber that you get from referrals, you end up making an extra $3 or $4 within the first month, which means that if you're getting thousands of referrals, you can be earning thousands of dollars a month just from this, which allows you to be a lot more generous with your referral rewards, with the cost of the referral rewards, basically. Because, if you are making back on average $3 per referral, it means you can afford to spend whatever you were spending before on referrals plus an extra $3 on the rewards. So this is definitely not something you want to be missing. And there are already newsletter operators arbitraging this super effectively and making mid-5 into the low 6 figures per month of extra revenue just by showing these newsletter recommendations, the paid ones, in their Upscribe widget to new subscribers. Awesome. I know we went a little bit late, but I have time to stick around and answer questions. So if anyone has any questions, I'm going to look at the two that have been made already and give an answer. And if anyone else has any questions here, please let us know. So what we have here is, let's take them in order. So the first question I'm going to look at is a specific question about Sparkloop and whether it's included in the deal that we have. We have a special partnership with an ESP called ConvertKit, where if you have ConvertKit's Creator Pro account, you get Sparkloop for free. And yes, Upscribe is included in that. And then there's another ESP specific question about whether specific ESPs offer the possibility of doing an insider section, like we mentioned before, inside of the newsletter. And the answer is, if your newsletter, if your email platform integrates with Sparkloop, then yes, it does allow you to do that insider section. We have a blog post on our site explaining how to do that. If you Google Sparkloop locked insider section, you'll find that there with some examples. And then another question we have from Melissa, which I need to see the context for. So let me go and have a look at that. Melissa is asking, I think in the context, Marissa, if you're still there, let me know if this is right. You're asking, what if we want people to share with, is that all of the above in terms of casual fans, superstars, and questers? Okay. So that would come down to the whom rather than the who, because if you're asking about yes, okay, so sorry, yeah, okay, so the question was about what if you want people to share with teammates, colleagues, and family. In that case, that's good because people have a huge amount of other people that they could be sharing with, but it's also a downside because you're making it so broad that people won't know where to share at all. So this is where you want to take, yes. So if, for example, Marissa's saying here for context, her newsletter audience is everybody who's in a specific city in the US, and she wants them to share with those people. So I would be thinking very specifically about where is it likely that your audience can take the link and share it with a lot of people who would be this would be relevant for, who might be interested in a one-to-many situation. So that might be Facebook. That might be forwarding it to everyone who works with them in the office that they work at, for example. It might definitely be like the iMessage group chat, right? It might be a Facebook group or some other group for for locals in that area. It might be the local sports team that they go to. And I would try and come up with like 10 or 15 of those plausible places that you might naturally share something exciting with a friend. And I would cycle through them as different options each time. So I would just include one or two of those options, and then each week I would cycle them out so that people have a different sort of little bit of inspiration each week as to where they should share it. I think that will be best. Awesome. Do we have any other questions? If not, thank you everybody for joining us today. I hope you found that useful. If you'd like to ask any questions about anything else that we didn't get a chance to do, you can find me on Twitter, or you can email me at louis@sparkloop.app. We're always happy to answer questions on this stuff and talk about referrals and newsletter growth in general. And Thank you very much. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day, and I hope your newsletter growth continues to do really well in 2023. Thank you very much.